Let's call this meeting of the Solid Waste Authority to order at 3:01 on September 12th, 2019. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Ms. Ashby? Carr? Frost? Here. Kennedy? Natoli?
Here.
Peters? Here. Guerra?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you. If everybody could just join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if the clerk can read the announcement.
The clerk's statement. This meeting of the Solid Waste Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will replay Sunday, September 15th at 4 p.m. and Tuesday, September 17th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back of the chambers and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. If you have any electronic devices, please silence them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the clerk could please read the first item.
Item number 1 is the general manager's report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board, members of the public. Have a short general manager's report today, just basically an update on some of the programs that the SWA has in place. This slide gives you a graphic on how our recycling programs are going. So on the left-hand side, for this year, you'll see that we started out with a business recycling compliance rate of about 60%, and we're up now to 70%. The most interesting slide is the second side of the slide on our business organics. If you remember, AB 1826 came into play. We had some conversations with you in May about compliance conversations with Cal Recycle. They were anxious to get us going with a program, and I would like to thank staff. They've done a tremendous effort in doing outreach to the customers. I know there's still some confusion with what Cal Recycle wants and the haulers and the relationships the haulers have with their businesses. But I'm very proud of what the SWA staff has done to raise our compliance rate from 5% up to the 35% level in 6 months. And it's going a long ways towards showing Cal Recycle that we are moving forward with implementation of 1826. A couple of updates on another couple of programs. One, we have a contract with Breathe California in the 2018-19 school year. 10 schools participated, 52 tons diverted. You have the 3 school districts there. And then for 1920, we're planning to introduce to 6 schools in Sacramento City and then Natomas Unified School Districts. So, update for the regional cleanup program performance. This is the program we have with the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps. This is 3 months of activity. You have a map that shows you the corridors that we've done. 9 tons of material collected, responded to 8 large piles on Garden Highway, and you can see what we're doing there. It's a good program, and one that I think it's hitting areas that probably were underserved with some of the probation crews and some of the other things. And then here's the South County area where you have Grant Line, Kiefer, and Eagles Nest Road. We have a program with the PBIDs for cleanup support, and one of the contracts we have that collected 13 tons in the second quarter, and we reimbursed their disposal costs. And we're revising the application thanks to some input we've gotten. We haven't gotten a lot of support, we don't have a lot of contracts with the PBIDs, but we're working through that as we speak. And then we did have the street art collection and artwork partnership, and Republic Services collected approximately 1 ton a month from public recycling receptacles, and Midtown Association is working on getting their litter designs out on 15 of their receptacles. So SWA disillusion. City and county staff have met. They're working with we'll be working soon with the consultant to work through devising the ordinance language that both the city and the county need going forward. The meetings with the city and the county staff have gone well, and we're proceeding with that. And that concludes my general manager's report. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask the clerk to go to the next item. Thank you very much for your report.
For your consent items 2 and 3, I have a correction for item number 2, approve the action summary for May 9, 2019. Item number 6 on the action summary should read, adopted the fiscal year 2019-20 proposed budget by resolution number SWA 19-0001, with further instructions from Director Guerra to increase the illegal dumping cleanup service fund, line item 15, by $375,000, and professional services, outreach, and media support, line item 7, by $100,000 for fiscal year 2019-2020, with the increases to be taken from the city's portion of the franchise fee distribution.
Very good, thank you. Is there I'll ask for a motion on consent?
I'll move consent.
It's been moved. It's been
Including
moved.
the correction.
Including the correction. It's been moved and seconded, including the red correction. Any further conversation? Any members of the public wishing to speak? If not, all those in favor, please cast your vote.
Please give clarification. What was the change? It was from 225 to 375 or by 375? What was the correction in?
So the correction, the summary that was in our packets,
Two.
had for line item 15, it said that the increase was from 225 to 375. It's actually an increase of 375. So it reflected a
Which would
lower
take it to
increase than what was
7,
approved.
just take it to
To 600.
600,000. Okay, that's why I heard Alma read it, but I was following here, but okay, thanks.
Good.
Unanimous vote with those members present.
Great. Very good. Measure passes. Thank you. All right, we'll ask the clerk to go to the next item.
Item number 4 is adoption of the fiscal year 2019-2020 final budget.
Very much thank you, and I believe we approved this, and this includes now our actual revenue numbers. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the only change I would point out, at the May board meeting, which was a preliminary budget, there was a motion made to reduce the amount that was going directly to the city in the payments. And under conference with the county council for SWA, we determined that we couldn't do that. So we actually have adjusted that. It would come out, it's a program expense for the SWA, and whatever that net is would then get divided up for the city and the county in disbursements.
Very much. Thank you for your help on that. Is there any questions from the board? If not, I'll ask for a motion to move the item. Okay, I'll move the item. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions?
Yeah, so the fee distribution to the county, that was included in information that had been previously transmitted to the county, so that would have been included in our final budget adoption a week ago. Do you know that for certain, the additional 3?
Sorry, I don't know that for certain.
So when was this information conveyed, or will be conveyed? This is all new information to?
To the county finance department.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have received it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll double check that tomorrow, but Tim says that they did receive the information about the change.
How long ago do you know, Tim, it was transmitted?
It was probably a month ago, so it was before final budget.
Okay, before our final budget
Yes.
adoption. I just wanted, okay, good enough. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It looks like you guys get 40,000 more?
A little more than that, I think.
Yeah, take any dollar you can, so. All right, with that, all those in favor, please cast your vote. Oh, wait, did we have a motion on that? I moved it,
Yeah, you
there was a
moved.
second, yes. And all those in favor, please cast your vote. If the clerk could please tally the vote.
And the motion carries with those members present.
Great.
$372,000 more.
Oh, 3?
Yeah.
There we go. Let's not short the county here.
You got more too.
Madam Clerk, next item.
Item number 5, workshop on Solid Waste Authority Commercial Waste Diversion Program Development and Potential Code Amendments.
So as we discussed in the spring board meetings, AB 1826 has some requirements for the generators to have full recycling programs, not just waste removal service and not just the the paper recycling, cans and bottles, but they also need to have organics recycling. We looked at the ordinance, we looked at the law, we looked at our ordinance and determined that we need to put some strength into and change our ordinance so that we can have some enforcement ability with the generators to make sure that they're getting the programs. This is part of that discussion that we had originally where Cal Recycle was critical of the speed in which we were moving on compliance. We actually don't have compliance language in our ordinances, which is what we want to present today in our workshop to you. Over the summer, we had stakeholder meetings with the franchised haulers so we could get their input on how this would actually work, and we'd like to present the findings of that today.
Very good.
Thanks, Doug, and you actually covered a lot of the main points. My name's Dave Ghirardelli, been with the SWA for 13 years and have watched these programs grow and evolve over the years. Just have a very brief presentation about, where'd my clicker go? Where we've been, how we got to where we are now, and what we think we need to do to go forward. Background of the programs at the SWA first, and then some suggestions from staff as to how we might amend our code pursuant to, like Doug described there, about making our implementation a little bit more robust. AB 341 was passed in 2012. Now that actually mirrored a SWA program that dated from 2007. It's business recycling. Run a business, got to have a recycling program. In 2009, SWA implemented an ordinance for multifamily recycling. 2013, the state, again, mirrored a SWA program. Slight difference in the thresholds, but the gist is the same. Multifamily properties have to have a recycling program. 2016 through 2018, the state implemented AB 1826. That is the organics recycling. It was tiered and phased in large generators to smaller generators. The SWA mirrored that. As Doug presented in his general manager's report, we had some difficulties in showing a compliance rate. Now, some of those numbers are misleading because it just simply presents what the franchisee data has, but this is what CalRecycle tells us is our compliance. We have implemented some programs to up those numbers, get new people involved, subscribing to service, and as well as documenting exemptions. This last 8 to 9 months, we have done a couple of blast mailers to get in touch with businesses across the SWA region, letting them know these are state laws. This is not a change in what you're required to do. This is already the state law. SWA has traditionally taken a very education outreach focused approach. CalRecycle wants us to move the needle. We did some mailers, got people subscribed, started documenting exemptions. We held 3 stakeholder meetings this summer, traditional SWA summer stakeholder meetings. It was refreshing this year to have a lot more of business participation, and I'm sure other elected members did the same, but specifically thank you Supervisor Peters and Supervisor Frost. Your outreach, part of your bulletins, actually helped us get business generators at the SWA stakeholder meetings. Usually this is a little bit of an insular group. It tends to be waste haulers, recycling facility operators, local government folks. It's good to get some waste generators who have an interest in this. That makes the conversation a lot better. The stakeholder discussions, the value SWA staff brings to these is it's a shared responsibility. Everybody generates trash, everybody generates recyclables. We all have to play a role in finding the solution, and the solution is we have to move the needle, How are we going to do that? Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. Would you like to see those slides again? They're basically what I just said.
Okay, we can,
Outreach and inspections, EMD is still our outreach arm. We leverage their presence in businesses already. They started with the restaurants and getting the food establishments and the bottles and the cans and getting that going. They're already at most of these facilities anyway. We continue to try to leverage their presence already to continue with outreach and education, but we are proposing and suggesting a subtle but substantive change to SWA code. Currently, franchisees are required to offer recycling service. What we are suggesting, again, in the spirit of shared pain, everybody's got a responsibility in this to help move the needle, is that franchisees would be required to provide the service, with a path for those who have alternative service not provided by their franchisee, provided as self-haul, provided because of an exemption, a path to service verification or exemption. SWA has already implemented this on a voluntary basis. It's one form. One of the things that drives businesses crazy, if they grow gray hairs, not knowing which path to take. So we've presented one interface, one form, SWA verification of either alternative service, self-haul, exemption for one reason or another. Otherwise, franchisee would need to provide the service. It's a subtle but substantive change, and I think it will help move that needle.
we have a
Implementation.
question from
Yeah, please.
Board Member Frost here, Supervisor
Please.
Frost.
What is what would an exemption look like?
There are a number of them. One is as written into state law, for example, on the organics, if they generate less than a half cubic yard per week, which is roughly 100 gallons, they don't need to have an organics recycling program. For example, the 1826 is written so that all businesses that have more than 4 cubic yards of service have to have an organics program. Well, if you're an insurance company operating in your own building and there's not much in the way of organics, this creates a path and helps us just document who doesn't need to have organic service. That way, they don't need to have a green waste bin.
Got it.
Also, landscapers, for example, multifamily complexes. I live in a multifamily complex. Our landscaper takes the green waste that's generated there and they haul it. There are plenty of commercial, landscaping debris composting facilities. We just need to document it.
Very good. Timeline.
We would bring this back to you. We had stakeholder meetings. Generally, an understanding from generators, haulers, facility operators that this would work. Obviously, devil's in the details. We will work through that. But we suggest that we take this approach. It would be it's a subtle but substantive change to the code, small ordinance, just a couple of sections affected. We would bring that back to you in October, implement it January 1st, and businesses would have 6 months between when they're told they have to get the 3-bin service and when they either subscribe to it or file the exemptions.
Very good. Thank you for your presentation. It looks like you're looking for direction from this board to come back in October 10th. And is there any objections to that direction or comments? Board Member Frost.
I just have one question. Is 6 months, is transitioning, for someone who is not currently doing it, to transition in 6 months, is that a financial burden on them? Or is there a way for them to outsource or solve that problem?
There
Or
are many
Is there any
ways.
flexibility for those that are struggling or whatever?
The businesses would have a number of paths to compliance. One is go ahead and get the 3-bin service from their franchise hauler, or document that they have alternative services. There are a lot of businesses that manage
This is for
it.
the businesses. The franchise haulers are all doing it already.
They already,
Okay.
all the franchisees already have the service ready to provide. They are just simply required by SWA code now only to offer it. This would
Okay, I
require
want-
them to provide it.
I wasn't sure if all the franchise haulers were ready to go, so I guess
They
that
already
answers my
offer the
question.
service currently, but just not to everyone. Franchisees were, of course, always, as they are every year, part of our stakeholder discussion. I know some of them are here. I sincerely hope that they will also get up and have a chance to share their thoughts with you.
Okay,
Great,
thanks.
thank you very much. Board Member Natoli.
Yeah, question I have, Dave, is that in the second paragraph under discussion portion of your staff report, beyond what you presented verbally, you talk about, as you've outlined, some of the different ways to increase compliance, encourage increased compliance. But the last sentence of the second paragraph under discussion says, the second is to provide penalties to franchisees that landfill source separated recyclables without notifying the SWA.
Right.
I guess I'd like to have you maybe expand upon, what's intended there. One, I think in light of where we currently are with recyclables, not so much the organics, but, and just knowing that, some of the more traditional and or understood sources for recycling those, some of those avenues have been closed off because of a variety of things going on in the world. But also then, when you say without notifying the SWA, so if they're going to take stuff to the landfill, then if they tell you it's okay, or what? So explain what you intend to do here.
Currently, and even as proposed, there would not be any sort of prior notification necessary. Obviously, if a truck is on the road and needs to unload the material because the customer needs to get served, and for example, the recyclable material is already too contaminated, the recycling facility isn't ready to take it. Currently, that material is not subject to franchise fees. If it is disposed, it would need to be subject to franchise fees. There are also SWA penalties in place, existing, for penalizing taking material for not providing recycling service. So
Is that for everything? So cardboard, plastics, organics, lumber, C&W, whatever it might be, or what are we talking about? Is it the whole range, or is it just certain aspects of the waste stream?
most
recyclable stream?
businesses subscribe to what's known as single stream recycling.
Right.
That material would be subject to franchise fees, and if that material is just collected and landfilled, staff suggestion is that there be penalties for that.
Okay, single stream, what's included in the single stream?
It's the bottles, cans, papers, cardboard. It's single stream is when you mix all the recyclables into one container, and this actually relates to the alternative service verification program. There are businesses that their only recyclable material is cardboard, and they have service from a cardboard recycler. It's not from a franchisee. Mm-hmm. What the idea behind putting penalties for landfilling recyclable material is, don't just offer recycling service and just take it and landfill it.
Right. And so what's this about notifying you then? So
It would be after the fact. We don't want to do anything that's going to interrupt trucks out on the road, because the trucks on the road are providing a service. The businesses need to have containers available to put materials into.
So is there some allowable fluctuation here, or to your point a moment ago, you're not going to offer recycling and then landfill it on a regular basis? That's not the intent, nor that was being done. But So at
That-
what point do you call somebody out on it? I guess maybe Doug, you were going to weigh in too. so.
That requirement is not explicitly described in SWA code currently.
So if you think of it, maybe you can answer it this way. It's a little bit confusing with the law, the way the law is written, but essentially, the hauler's requirement is to provide the service. But the generator has an option. Right now, they currently have an option. They don't have to have the organics recycling, right? They could be a restaurant, generate it, throw it all in the trash can. But under 1826, they're required to recycle that material. So if you look at a business, they really only have two options. One is they can apply for an exemption and go through that process and provide that to the hauler, and we work with the haulers on that. Or the haulers will work with the generators too, right? If it's a State Farm office, they may not have organics. The hauler may be able to work with them and get the exemption. Or if they don't have an exemption, they have to have the service. And so one of the things that's in the law for the SWA staff that we're actually working with EMD on is when we do our business inspections, we're not only looking for trash service and do they have adequate trash service. We're looking for, do they have the single stream recycling service and do they have the organic service? If they refuse to sign up for it, if we identify that Joe's business doesn't have this and it's required and they refuse to do it, under the law, we would then look towards penalties to get the generator into compliance. That's not a one-time thing. It's working with those generators, working with the haulers. But what we're trying to do with the ordinance is strengthen it so that the haulers have to provide the service, which they do, and then it provides the remedy for the business, because they have that relationship with the business to work through, whether it's the exemption or whether it's the service.
And I do think we have one of the haulers signed up to speak on this item who might shed some light on this as well.
But they only have two choices as a business, exemptions or service.
If I just closure then on that, so that's what the generators have. But I guess I want to go back to this piece about if you got to get it off the truck and you can't get it to the recycler, so you landfill it, that may be a once in a very rare occurrence or not. So who's watching that? That it doesn't, consistently telling you after the fact, and what's after the fact? Is the next day? Is it, some report that comes out annually? So
The eyes on that for, and again, your last, the sentence you've identified in the staff report, provide penalties to franchisees that landfill source separated recyclables without notifying the SWA. Recyclable material that is collected, SWA does not have a mechanism now to deter just providing a recycling service where in fact the material is just collected and landfilled anyway.
So there's no mechanism to oversee that? Because again, I'm going, and this is not in this community, but again, because of some of the, disruption in the recycling market, I've heard both anecdotally and I think I've seen even in print where communities are burying glass and plastics, that have been already, whether single stream and or have been source separated, but they don't have a place to put them. There's no market for them, so they're just landfilling them.
That is a challenge.
Okay.
Recyclable material markets are very difficult right now.
Okay, and I don't want to belabor this, but I guess I want to know, because again, I think it goes back to what the consumer as well as obviously the customer expectation. If you're requiring generators to subscribe to the service, obviously folks to transport that, and it goes to the integrity within the system itself. And again, I'm not looking for the penalty part of this, I'm just looking for the integrity. And if in fact the story is we haven't got any place to recycle this right now, so it's going to get landfilled, then you tell people that, and you don't charge them for a service that really basically puts a mask over what's happening with that material. I have strong disagreement with that. So just if the fact is we can't recycle this material this month, this year, then we're going to landfill it so people know what's happening with that material. That's my point.
I think that a provision to address that concern could certainly be added to any penalty provisions there. That's loud and clear. That's I think our haulers would appreciate that. Yeah. One of the things that we want to do is just make sure the SWA has the tools to keep from having recycling programs established that aren't really recycling
Very good.
programs.
And if you could bring that when it comes back to, on October 10th, that'd be.
Absolutely.
It'd be helpful. Thanks. We do have a member of the public signed up to speak, Mr. Dave Sikich.
Good afternoon. My name's Dave Sikich with Atlas here in Sacramento. Been operating waste and recycling collection for over 20 years. And I just want to commend your staff for the collaborative nature in which they have been working on this and the stakeholder meetings that they had throughout the summer. I'm very much in favor of the direction that they're going. I think it's exactly what we need to make sure that we can get compliance. You know, we are certainly ready to provide the service. We already are providing the service to a lot of customers. And in fact, there's somewhat of an inequity that some of the businesses are paying the extra fee for the service and others are essentially waiting until they have to do it. So I think this is going to help us a lot. In terms of the penalties for burying recyclables, I think they're important for a couple of reasons. You know, the world changed on us and the cost of recycling costs a lot more money. And so we are seeing some people try to throw away their recyclables because frankly it's cheaper to throw them away than it is to have them processed. So I think it's important on that side. I do believe though, as long as we're making a good faith effort to recycle these items, there needs to be a provision that we're not penalized if they do in fact have to end up in a landfill. But certainly the communication there would be hopefully prior to ever having to do that. And I know in years past with the organics, we did get out in front of that and made sure everybody was aware that there was no place to take the organics for that period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Sikich. Appreciate your comments, and I think we've had some good input that we're looking forward to seeing in the future. And if staff will take that as direction and no objections, then we'll move on to the next item. Madam Clerk?
Item number 6, comments from the public.
Do we have any members from the public signed up to speak?
I have no speaker slips.
Okay, then if there's no members of the public here signed to speak, we're adjourned at 3:33 p.m.
Thank you.